Hi, welcome to today's edition of It's Your Business. My name is Cindy Doherty, and I will be your host today. Our guest is Greg Harshfield, who is now an Anderson Township resident and a Macy's employee, but that's not the reason we have Greg here. And you're going to find out why we have Greg here. Hi, Greg.
Hi.
Greg has also started a very popular website here in Anderson Township called AroundAndersonTownship.com. And our audience, probably a lot of our audience members are familiar with the website. And in addition to that, he also publishes a digital newsletter. So we're going to learn about both of those things today. So let's back up a little bit, Greg. Where did you come from? I know you didn't originally come from Anderson Township.
No, I grew up in Iowa, in a few different cities in Iowa, mostly rural and outside the bigger cities. And then, as a child, we moved around quite a bit. So military child. And then I actually moved to Cincinnati a little over 20 years ago from St. Louis, Missouri, and just love the area. Been in love with Cincinnati, ever since I moved here. So it's been a really nice transition, and definitely deep roots in Cincinnati. Well,
what struck you as different or better about Cincinnati, and particularly Anderson Township?
Well, the sports teams first. Big football fan, and of course in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, we did not have an NFL team.
Yeah.
And still don't. But Anderson Township in particular, when we located here, I noticed something that was a sort of a neighborhood feeling that I hadn't seen since my childhood, since growing up in high school in Iowa. And it was sort of just a neighborly feeling where, when you see somebody on the road, you wave, and if growing up, if they didn't wave, they obviously weren't from around there. So it's that same kind of a feeling. You go to Kroger on a Saturday, and you see people, clustered in the produce section that haven't seen each other for a while, and it's a nice feeling. It's a neighborhood feeling, and it's sort of struck me as unusual in a suburb of a large city.
That's true. I have heard that said before from friends that I've had from, say, New York. They just think that the Midwest, particularly the Cincinnati area, is very friendly, and they feel very much at ease and at home here. So that's good to hear. I mentioned that you have a full-time job with Macy's.
Yes.
So what motivated you to start AroundAndersonTownship.com, which I know is extremely time-consuming, but how do you juggle all that, and what made you start it?
Well, starting at first was an idea that my wife and I came up with for a hobby. In essence, my work tends to be fairly stressful. It's especially in the summertime, getting ready for the holiday sales, etc. And I needed a hobby. And with small children, it's hard to be able to justify going out and playing golf or outside of the home hobbies. And we talked about me starting to write, because I used to love to write, and I hadn't written in a while. And we thought, well, let's do maybe some local human interest stories, and came up with the idea for the name Around Anderson Township after several iterations of things that were either too long or too cryptic.
It's very descriptive, though, of what the website is. I mean,
it
it's
is, and we wanted to also encompass the areas around Anderson, not just Anderson, exclusively. And started with a story about a man that lives down the hill from us on Nordyke, and an elderly gentleman that sits in his driveway most days and waves at the cars as they go by. And I just thought, one day, that's an interesting tale. So I wrote an article about him, and just started writing about an article a month or every couple of months to put on this blog that I had started. And about a year and a half later, and this was all started in 2011, about a year and a half later, I hear from Eric Miller, the executive director of the Chamber of Commerce, and asking me if I could add some things to the site, and if he could send me some things my way, and of course I said yes, and it started to get more popular, and then started to get more input from other folks around the township and other businesses, and so I started doing some business spotlights, and it just really took off. And
people like to read about and learn about their neighbors.
Definitely,
just like the guy that sits out in his driveway.
Yeah,
I mean.
And if you look at the news that we put out, in particular in the newsletter, we focus on human events, happy times, events, things going on around the township, new businesses, changes, road construction, which isn't always a happy event.
Exactly.
It's a necessary
Exactly.
event. And it's easy to lose sight of the things that are important right in your own backyard if you watch the national news, you know, and you see all the things going on around the world. Sometimes it's nice to be a little more grounded.
I agree. I think that's a great idea. You and I also talked about how sometimes a neighborhood can become segmented somewhat in terms of, for instance, in Anderson Township, we have the administration part of it. We have the park district, we have the school district, the chamber, and then we have the residents themselves. And I thought it was interesting how you looked at this as a tool to kind of connect these segments.
Yeah,
Also,
I really wanted to do something that would be a hub. You know, I look at the Anderson government site, and there's great information there. I look at the chamber website, and there's great information there. And the parks website, they have great information. And the schools, you know, all of our area schools, Forest Hills, McNick, IHM, and they all have great information that they want to get out to people that live in the area. But it's really hard when you're that busy and you have that type of a role to share information and to really work together. So I thought it would be great if somebody stepped up and acted sort of as the hub that would take information from each of those areas and marry them together in a format, in a place where it was lively and you know, people would see it. And a lot of times people were surprised by what they could find.
I'm
you know, at some of these other sites or, you know, collected you know, together in one area. So it's that too has been really beneficial. And yeah, started the social media channels, Facebook and Twitter, for the same reason, to really truly get the message out. And you know, we're very closely tied in now with all the local media outlets, all of the local news channels, and
I understand that sometimes they even call you to check a story, and because they have faith in the fact that you're very credible.
Yes.
And, I mean, I think that's great.
Yeah, I don't like to print or post anything that I haven't checked out very well, especially in the world of social media. It can be a very dangerous thing if you post something that's misinformation and it really goes goes viral, as they say. Then
exactly.
It's a bad
scene. Do these different segments of the area, do they feed you the information, or do you have to? Do you call them, or how does that work?
Sometimes I'll get tidbits of information from them, or I'll make calls or via social media or email.
So you have contacts, pretty much people that.
And there are some things that aren't really appropriate for say a full-blown citywide newspaper. Sure. There are some stories that just aren't. They're so granular that they just don't make sense there, that are perfect for us, that we'll look at. And then I also try to look at, things that are of interest to the residents in our area. In particular, depending on the time of year, we did a story on groundwater, we did a story on wood bees, and some of these things are, by some standards, relatively dry material, but for our residents around here, the deal with it
pertains to these people.
Yeah, and one of the best performing articles I had done of that nature was the article I did on the stink bugs and what to do and what not to do.
Those were big this year. I understand you're supposed to take the vacuum cleaner and suck those things into the vacuum cleaner. And
just don't smash them in the house.
No kidding.
Don't smash them in the house.
We know why they're called stink bugs.
Yes.
Exactly. Oh, that's funny. Do you see this website? How do you see the relationship between that and, say, the Forest Hills Journal, the community newspapers?
That kind of fits in with what I was talking about with respect to a newspaper that's run by a larger organization that maybe doesn't have all the room for the granular news. And there's also a time factor involved there. If you look at some of the stories that are in the Forest Hills Journal, some of those stories are a little bit older, whereas I try to get the things that are very timely and very important right now. A lot of times families will make plans for the weekend very, short notice.
Yeah.
On Friday they'll decide what they're going to do Saturday, and they want to know what's going on in the area. So some of those types of things. And there is some duplication. There are some things that I cover that Forest Hills Journal covers, and that's okay.
But you also have a different focus.
Yeah,
You know,
and
I think
there
the
are
timeliness is
a lot of times in the newsletter where I will actually direct people to the story, you know, in the community press,
Yeah.
and you know, and they have a great relationship with me. So
that's good.
a nice
That's very
partnership.
good. Just an additional way to get the news out.
Yeah.
It's good. So how do you know that, this was kind of a funny story you and I talked about, how do you know that people are actually going to your website?
Yeah, the funniest thing that I'd noticed when I first started the newsletter was the 6th issue. I had made the decision to change the format. You know, I created the template myself, and it was, I liked it, but I thought, well, maybe people want something a little more modern and a little more you know, responsive and progressive. So I spent a lot of time one week creating this new template, and I sent out the newsletter, and I got numerous emails, all very nice emails, but just asking, why'd you change it? I really liked it before, and now it looks funny. I don't like this. It's not as homey. The colors aren't as warm, and you know, so I thought, well, that's it. You know, the people that are reading the newsletter and reading the site, they've spoken, and they know what they want. And I did the same thing with the site. Only that was actually very warmly welcomed when I changed the format of the site about about 6 months ago, I guess it was, and that's been very well received.
Sort of
nice
kind of
layout.
an inadvertent way of getting some feedback
Definitely.
unexpectedly.
Yeah. It's neat. It's a nice thing to see that so many people really, truly are reading it and care.
Yeah, that's great. I think you and I also talked about the perception of social media.
Yeah.
That a lot of people my age, older people, I'll go there, tend to see the negative aspects of it. And what you're doing is a very positive thing. Can you talk about your perception of social media, and how do you see the positives outweighing the negatives?
It all has to do with what we talked about a little earlier, and that's the care that you put into what you post, in terms of whether or not it's it's polarizing. One of the things that I always want to avoid, I never want to post anything that pits people against one another. Nothing overly political, or anything that might divide people or cause
create
some very
conflict.
cause some very stern opinions. And that's one thing that I think is a danger zone, is it creates a conflict and a conflict of interest, really. So that there are also dangers in untruths. We had a situation a few months ago where a post, not from us, but a post was placed from a person either in or around Anderson about a particular event, and that event turned out to be not true. And before it had been exposed as not true, it had gone out to thousands and thousands of people just because it was that volatile. That's something you really want to avoid, because for a lot of people, they do rely on that as a source of valid communication.
Right, so they assume that it's truthful. If it's on there, it's the truth.
Yeah, and then there are a lot of positives. In particular, I've noticed with Twitter, the news is so immediate. There are a lot of things I learn on Twitter before you see them on CNN or on the local news. So it tends to be very valuable. But again, those have to be checked out to validate the stories. But it's also a great way to get the word out to a large group of people.
Exactly. Well, you have to tell the dog story.
One of the greatest achievements of social media, in my opinion, is a story about a young lady whose dog got loose during one of the worst ice storms we had this last winter. And she sent me a message while I was eating dinner with my family that said her dog had gotten out, and she had a picture of the dog, and she asked if I could post it on Facebook. And I thought, well, yeah, this is pretty important. I'll stop what I'm doing. I'll post it on Facebook. And so I posted the photograph and posted the story and the general vicinity, and asked people to message me. And I didn't think about it for another hour or so, and I came back a few hours later, and it had gone out to 8,000 people. And then I looked a little bit later, 14,000 people had seen the post. And ultimately, it had a reach of 21,000 people.
Wow.
in the eastern Cincinnati area. And the next morning, the dog had been returned. So it's a very positive story, and it's a positive impact and power of social media. So it was really very nice. And we've had several other smaller stories like that since then of lost pets.
But that is a great illustration of how social media can really be very positive.
Definitely.
Very helpful.
Very nice. And it also speaks to the people that we have in Anderson Township
Right.
that really are truly very cooperative and neighborly and care about one another.
Which goes back to your initial comments about what a great place this
Absolutely.
is to live.
And the
how
harder I
caring these
work,
people are.
the more I do, the harder I work, and the more hours I put into it, the more I realize how great the people really are.
That's a nice thing to say about the area where you live. It's great. Okay, we can't let you go without talking about the Citizen of the Year Award. You won that last year.
Yeah, of the
What did that mean to you?
the Greater Cincinnati ASPA Award for Outstanding Community Volunteer. I have it memorized.
How did you? Yeah, I never would have gotten that.
The nomination was given to me by Vicki Earhart after one of the trustee meetings, and as I read the nomination, I thought, you know, this is to me, this was bigger than just about anything I've ever done. That what I'm doing means enough to a group of people that they would put together something so eloquent and so beautiful, and you nominate me even for something like this, I thought was fantastic. And then to be called and told that I had won was, you know, just had me over the moon. So yeah, for several weeks, you couldn't talk to me without hearing about my award.
I don't blame you.
But
Congratulations.
And
I
it
think
still means a
that's
lot
wonderful.
to me, and it really had a lot to do with the goal and the you know, the impetus behind creating Around Anderson Township, which was to bring all those people together. And that was, the nomination was written by the Township administration, Chamber of Commerce, Parks, you know, Forest Hills School District, trustees. It was very all-encompassing.
That's a huge deal.
Yeah, I'm framing it.
I would if I were you. That's great. Just says what, you know, what kind of an impact you've had on this area, and how important what you're doing is to the citizens here. That's great. Okay, we talked about the website. You do something else, which is a digital newsletter. Explain that, and how does that differ from the website? That's a completely different.
It is. It's a different format. It's still on the same domain, so it's news.aroundandersontownship.com, and every week you'll find the same, you know, or the new news at that same URL.
Okay.
And I decided that we needed some way to communicate sort of little news in brief to all the residents. And I thought, well, let's try this email newsletter. So last September, I decided I'm going to try a little experiment, and I sent out messages to some of our loyal, you know, readers and followers, and they signed up for this emailed newsletter, and I created it, sent it out, and people loved it, and they thought this was just fantastic. It's all these little bullet points of news, and if you want to read more, you can. You know, you can click on it and go to the site. Where the site is more of a collection of a lot of timeless articles, a lot of events, and, you know, longer, more in-depth things. So that newsletter really became very popular very quickly, and you know, now we have a readership in the thousands, which is very nice. And I look at the demographics and the statistics, and many of our readers are actually out of state.
I was going to ask you, it's not just Anderson Township that's going to these sites.
And I just wondered to myself, are they people that maybe moved from Anderson that kind of like to have that local tie? But it's very interesting. It's fascinating to see the popularity. And I remember asking someone about the 7th or 8th issue if they thought I should keep doing this, and they said, well, I will tell you, if you stop, I'm going to come after you. So it's pretty popular.
That was pretty clear.
It's a nice deal, and people tend to rely on it quite a bit, and it is a nice thing to post it and have, you know, the trustees all will share it, and the Chamber of Commerce will send it out, and it's a
now
nice.
Is there a difference in your focus with the newsletter as well, the digital newsletter, about what types of things you report?
Yes, yeah, the digital newsletter tends to be more things that are really truly immediate and newsworthy, and that's where we'll put a lot of the information about road construction or you know, particular human interest stories, winners of contests, you know, young people that have had achievements in the schools. We do put a lot of things you know, in there about scholarships, and
so it's more to the positive side of things.
Oh, definitely, and it really it serves as a vehicle for people outside of our township who are either you know, citizens of Cincinnati, residents of Cincinnati area, or who are maybe thinking about moving to the Cincinnati area, to get a glimpse of what it's like to live in Anderson.
Ooh, that's a great point.
that too has been very positive. I've gotten several contacts, people that have written to me and asked me questions about the area, who they should contact about real estate, who they should contact about information for the schools, and it's really nice. It's nice to be able to have that conversation and that connection to tell them how great this area really is.
Yeah, that's kind of they can get lots of questions answered.
Yep.
One spot. It's a great resource.
And I'd like to think that ultimately it helps with the influx of new residents and
I'm sure it does.
Home sales and
absolutely, and especially because you do put a positive spin on most of what
right.
I think that's great. Real asset to Anderson Township. I know you're a member of the chamber. Has that relationship benefited you in terms of what you're doing?
Absolutely. I would say chamber membership is probably the number one thing that is paramount to my success in getting the word out among local businesses. We have a few advertisers now, which is really nice, and we also I love to do business spotlights. One of the things that I like to do when a new business comes into town is get to know the owners or whoever's behind the operation and do a nice story about the new business, and that too has been very beneficial. Belterra was able to take a really nice tour of Belterra before the opening and get some good information on that.
Oh, I bet that was fun.
Oh, definitely.
It's a great facility,
yep.
isn't it?
And as far as expanding, learning and education and availability of tools, I mean, Eric and the team at the chamber, they bend over backwards really to help local businesses and local organizations really integrate very well and extremely professional and very caring. It's a really nice setup.
That networking thing,
absolutely,
that helps, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and I think a lot of people, even individuals, if they knew the benefits they could see from chamber membership, I think it would be very beneficial for a lot of folks.
I can see where it would be. Well, Greg, I think that just about wraps it up for today. I think it's wonderful the service that you provide to the citizens of Anderson Township, and again, I congratulate you on your award, which I won't even attempt to repeat. Say it again. What was the name of it?
The 2014 Greater Cincinnati ASPA, which is the American Society for Administrators. I don't know.
Close enough.
See, that part I forgot. For outstanding community volunteer.
That's quite an accomplishment.
It's an organization that Vicki Earhart used to actually be the president of for Greater Cincinnati as well, and it's a wonderful organization. Celebrates a lot of the local townships and areas around Cincinnati. So there were a lot of really nice awards that were handed out that day to some really great people.
Well, obviously you are very highly thought of in the area and are providing just a really nice service and getting a lot of information out there, and what things that people might not otherwise know about from the newspapers or what have you. So, excellent job. We probably should, let's let the audience know one more time how to access both of the digital newsletter and your website. What were those two addresses again?
The website is www.aroundandersontownship.com, and then the newsletter can always be found at news.aroundandersontownship.com. So there's no www on the news. It's just news.aroundandersontownship.com. Should people contact you if they have ideas or information? Absolutely, please. Would that be? I thrive on input from residents and businesses, and it's really a great way for us to interact. And a lot of the students in the area submit things during the school year as well. Some of the journalism teachers and groups at the various schools will submit stories, and the kids love to see their articles in print, if you will. Sure. And it's a great way for them to experience what it's like to sort of submit articles and have things be widely read, and it's a good learning tool. And it's great for me too. I love to post content from these young folks that are very promising. Great way for you to use your writing skills as well. Absolutely. Satisfies that need. I love it. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. It's been a very interesting, informative interview, and thanks for having me. Good luck with all of your technology endeavors. Thank you. It's great. And to our audience, thanks for joining us today. We hope you'll join us next time for It's Your Business.